Hello, WordNerds! We're live! It is April 25th, 2021. We are having our movie night tonight. We wanted to offer a big apology to people who read the book for tonight in anticipation. This was originally going to be our book club chat, but a few weeks ago, we realized that with like finals and people moving and everything that we weren't going to have time to give the book the attention that we wanted to give it. So we moved it to our June book club and put it on some of our social media, but forgot to put it on others. And so we're so sorry, but we are going to be talking about it in June. And we're really excited that you read the book. And we really, really hope that you will be there in June to talk about it. And that book, if you haven't read it yet and wanted to read it, it's The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Yeah, a mystery. All of our game, movie, book this quarter are mystery themed. So today we're going to be talking about the movie Searching. It's starring John Cho. We are going to be spoiling it. So if you don't want to be spoiled on the mystery aspect of it, then definitely come back to this video. Leslie said it's a great book. I enjoyed it. I'm so glad you enjoyed the book.
I'm excited to read it.
Yes.
Me too. Especially because it looks like so many people in the comments actually finished it and are going to join us. So yeah, I'm excited for that book club.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I said, we're going to be talking about the movie Searching. It's a really interesting format. I didn't really know what to expect going in based on how it was described to me, but it just feels like the internet is the point of view. Do you think we're going to spoil it like pretty outright?
I think so. Yeah. Hold on.
Is there a way we could talk about it for a while?
We can like a while.
Yeah, maybe the first half try and talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about the first half without spoiling it, and then we'll let you know before we do the big.
Because the twist definitely needs discussion at the end.
Yeah.
But the twist is really far into the movie, so I feel like there's things to talk about before that.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about the format, first of all. It feels like the internet is the point of view for the whole movie. What did you guys think about that?
I thought it was I think it could be really hokey, but they did a really good job of it. And it felt very immersive. So for anyone who hasn't seen it, almost the entire thing is like through the main character's computer. So like you're seeing him make FaceTime calls, you're seeing his like internet searches, you're seeing just like everything that happens on his computer. And yeah, I think it could be really terribly done, but it was really well done. And like we actually we rewatched it because my husband and I saw it back when it came out a few years ago. And like my husband had forgotten because like it like had immersed us so much that when it started and it was through his computer, he was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even remember that it was that way.
Yeah, it was so well done. And like I remember just sitting down in the first few minutes and going, oh no, this is going to make me cry. I'm like, how is it shot through the point of view of a computer and it's going to make me cry? But that's definitely what happened.
Yeah, every time there was a new like format of like some different kind of video, I was like, wow, that's really impressive. Like I wouldn't have thought of that. And there's so many different ways you can use just that visual medium to tell this kind of story.
Yeah, it was so well done. And like with the what's it called, Crowdcast or whatever it was that she was using. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, that's like so many platforms, like TikTok Live, the one that Kelly and I have been doing lately, and like the Instagram Live. I'm like, that's such a familiar format, right? Like it seems so real. So
yeah,
I was sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, the only thing that sometimes felt a little hokey to me was like the acting when people were leaving voice messages. Like sometimes it felt a little cheesy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No one ever does a good job of like leaving voicemails in movies.
No, they can be like incredible actors and then they're tasked with leaving a phone message and it just is like, that's not how anyone sounds.
There were a few times though with John Cho's character where I was like, he's an awkward dad. Like,
yeah,
some of it I was able to believe because he was just awkward.
For sure.
Yeah.
I loved all of his stuff.
Yes. I think he did such a good job. Yeah. He was so good in it. But it's so funny because the times that they were interacting like with one another, it had such a modern feel to me that I was surprised they weren't wearing masks in the interactions.
I was actually telling my husband, like, towards the end of the movie, I was like, this like really feels like a movie that could have been made during the pandemic because it's all through a computer and like people are voice chatting,
Yeah.
I think there was a movie made with a lot of that, like last year.
I know there was a horror one that I watched, and it was like the WordNerds should do a movie, and y'all were like, no, because it was live chats, and the live chat characters were being killed off one at a time. Yeah. It was called Host. That's what it was called, and they all had. And the other girl was like, I'm going out to rescue my friend and stuff, and she had a mask on and everything, so it was very much like a pandemic movie. It was good. It was creepy.
Another thing I thought was really good with the whole computer format is they did a good job of like accurately portraying computers and the internet over like the period of like 15 years or whatever. Like it was like old like Windows and like old Facebook. Like they did a really good job.
When it was the old Windows, I actually said to Matt, like that computer screen feels more like where I grew up than my hometown. I was like, that is so familiar.
Yeah.
For sure. When it first came up, I had a moment where I was like, wait, I thought this was a pretty new movie. This is the old window. Is it gonna? But then Griswold mentioned I had a feeling very similar to Up with that opening. They started it. And once I realized this was a montage, I was like, I know where we're going.
It had one inevitable end.
Yes.
You're like, I know John Cho is in the rest of the movie, so clearly the mom is
dying. And it's about his daughter going missing. So bye-bye, mom. Yeah, that was coming. But still, even though I knew it was coming, I was like, no, tears.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was, again, the format lent itself really well to making that a poignant moment without feeling like melodramatic. So yeah, we get the intro, mom's dead, dad's awkward but trying. We get like a sense for their relationship, and then we hit the start of the movie or the main plot, which is the daughter goes missing. She calls John Cho a few times in the middle of the night and then goes missing. I felt like, why is no one taking this more seriously?
Yeah.
Like he talks to the brother and the brother's like, it's probably fine.
Kids. Yeah.
Kids always just running off in high school for days.
Yeah.
It's because of that intro, it gave me such a weird sense to the rest of it of like how much time has passed. How long has she been missing? Of like, because like it started with like 36 hours where he hadn't talked to her, which just sets the whole search timeline weird in my head.
Yeah, at the end they say it's been 3 days.
I thought it had been 5.
I think it's 5 days.
It was 5.
Okay.
They said she went
but
for
the storm
2.
is in the middle.
Yeah, don't spoil the ending.
I won't spoil
the water. I mean,
because it's like the last time he saw her was Thursday, I think, because he like doesn't see her in the morning Friday when she goes to school. Or no, so it's Thursday night that everything happens. So so he sees her Thursday, and then all day Friday he's just like, oh, she's just at school. She got up before me, which like makes sense, And so it's not until like, and then Friday night he finds out that like her friends went camping. So he's like, okay, she's camping. I'm pissed at her, but like I know where she is. So it's not until Saturday that he's really like, oh, like something's up.
So the fact that it's 5 days that she's missing, and we do all of that, then the searching, and we get to a funeral before, like, that just seemed really fast to me. So I don't know, the timeline was weird in my head.
Well, the
funeral is very quickly arranged.
The funeral also didn't make sense because there's no body. They didn't really confirm.
I think it was a memorial that they were doing.
And that was it was after the guy had confessed.
Yeah, but still, I don't know if that would happen in real life.
Oh, 100% no. Not
it was very quick. I think the memorial would have happened without them finding a body of it, because it would have just been like, okay, the body's just missing. But like it was very quickly arranged. But they needed the memorial to happen for.
I think they played it off as like a vigil, which is even removed from a memorial.
I couldn't believe that he chose the memorial people that were like, sorry about your daughter's death. Here's a package.
Sorry, she's been gone for 24 hours.
In case she's dead, here's a great deal for you.
Funeral discount.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like on the one hand where I'm like, okay, why didn't anyone get concerned sooner? At the same time, I in some ways think it is kind of realistic and more realistic than movies where like a kid's been missing for like 2 hours and the parent's like, my child has been kidnapped. I know it, you know, like it kind of makes sense that he's just kind of like, he's optimistic about it. And he's like, oh, I'm sure she's just at school, or I'm sure she's on the camping trip. And does it, cause like, you don't think like my daughter's actually.
And Griswold has a great, it's like Hopper said in Stranger Things, 99% of the time the kid is fine. People never think the unthinkable would happen to them. That's why I give it a pass.
Yeah, and plus that you could tell that the dad was pissed when someone was like, oh, they're camping. And so you're like, he's been like so anxious. Like, even if he's just been texting her, like, where are you? He's obviously been like spiraling. And so that's why he's like furious when he's like, how could you do this and not tell me? Like, I was worried.
I love when he writes out that long text.
Yeah.
Just deletes
All the
it.
things he like writes and then deletes before sending. It's like, it's so cool that you get to see that.
Very relatable. Yeah.
I love how he puts the exclamation point at the end and then he changes it to a period and then he just deletes them.
Yeah.
Like, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, it's incredible. Just, yeah, they did such a good job with all of the texts that he was sending to people.
Oh, yeah, and like, you know, he like put punctuation. Like he would always put a period at the end of sentences in his text. Like it was very like, oh yeah, that's how a dad texts, you know?
Yes, yeah. The one part that I was like, and it played out well like later on, but it frustrated me because I'm like, I'm not sure how realistic this is. When he was like zooming with her friend that was not her friend from the study group, and she was like, oh yeah, like, and like snapping her gum and twirling her hair. And like, even if you're the biggest butthole on earth, you can tell that this girl's dad is distraught.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I don't think it was giving teenagers enough credit. Like,
yeah,
exactly. Cliche, especially her turning around later, being like, "Oh, she was my best friend." I feel like that has been done a lot and didn't feel genuine.
Yeah, I totally like when everyone was like, "Oh, I knew her. I'm so heartbroken," and like people in her high school that didn't talk to her were like, "We're besties." Like I have seen that happen, and I like know it does happen, but her like pre finding out all that in the hair twirling.
I feel like those kind of girls would have gone to that mode in that initial call of like, oh my god, she's missing, and not just like, oh, I don't care that her dad says she's missing.
Yeah, because she's involved in the drama of this. Like even if she was a shallow piece of crap, she would be like, oh, this is exciting, like let's investigate or whatever, you know what I mean? Like the drama queens are gonna drama regardless of
be the first person to make a post about it or
oh exactly. Yeah,
I also think like the most unrealistic thing about this movie is that all of these teenagers answer their phones when he calls them.
Yeah, that's really
like they get a call from an unknown number and they just answer it. Like I don't know any teenagers that answer their phones. I've worked with college students and it's like you try to call them and like it goes to voicemail and they never even listen to the voicemail. Like
voicemails. I'm offended if somebody calls me. I'm like, what are you doing? But I'll listen to the voicemail.
Yeah,
I'll listen to it eventually. I get so many like spam ones or just like hang up ones. Like every once I have a few built up, then I'll take the time, but it's not going to be a problem.
True.
Yeah, I definitely felt a little like the teens felt a bit too much like a monolith. It was like every single one of them told her dad to his face that they didn't like her. Like, like I get the guy who used to be her best friend growing up. I could see him being honest and being like, you know, we're not close. My mom made me invite her. But all of them.
Yeah, and he seemed very hesitant about telling him that too. You know, like he was kind of like, clearly I feel bad about this, where the rest of them were just like, she eats lunch by herself all the time.
Sorry, but your missing daughter was the worst.
The loner.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting how you're able to like get so much information just from the computers because they had the different users on each computer. And so he was able to go in and found this whole detailed address book with like information about people in it. And I was not old enough to be doing something like that with my computer when it looked like that.
But a mom would have.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
So I thought that was really interesting. And just overall, the figuring out like well, who were they talking to? How can I get into an account if it's private?
And I thought it was really realistic when that, you know, one jerky little kid that like made his comment about how he's at a party, yo, or whatever. He's actually at a movie theater and he has no idea. He's just being a dumbass, right? And then the dad goes and decks him essentially. And I was like, hey, A, that was awesome. I'm not mad. And B, like, that's completely realistic because there's always one douchebag that's like, saying
this is a joke
stuff. Yeah, it thinks it's a joke. Yeah.
Well, and I also love how that same kid, his alibi is that he was at a Bieber concert. Yeah. That scene is great. He's like, "Tell me what you were doing that night." And it, like,
jump cuts to him just typing
confirmed. Confirmed.
And Griswold said, "I thought his workaround to the Facebook password was pretty clever. My parents would not have figured that one out when I was a teenager."
Yeah. This was one thing I kind of was like quirked an eyebrow at because was he trying to get into his daughter's Facebook account and the daughter's backup password was sent to the mom's?
So he was trying to get into her Facebook account. So it sent a reset email to her Gmail account. So then he was trying to get into her Gmail account. And the backup to her Gmail was the mom's Yahoo.
His wife.
Like
from like way back when she set it up. Yeah.
Okay.
Like 12 or something. Yeah.
Which would have made
before
sense.
the age where you have like 18 backup emails of your own.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I thought that was really clever because even I was like, oh, this, like once you get to the second one, I probably would have given up and be like, I don't know how to do this.
What are you gonna do now? Yeah.
And it's just like that's how hackers get into stuff, you know, like things like that. If they can get into one thing, they can use that to like reset passwords to other things.
Yeah. Hackers got into my Costco account once, and they got into everything from there.
They're like ants. If one comes in, they spread everywhere.
I thought that the movie also did a really good job of portraying like his grief. Again, it was like not melodramatic, but it was very like, oh, you see him at the beginning and he doesn't want to see certain videos. He doesn't want to ever log into that account. But like as things are devolving, you see him going like quicker and quicker, like just get me into her email, just get me over here, let me see these things so I can find them.
And also how like different people like process grief and like how that can cause conflicts where like he was very much like, we just won't talk about it because like I don't want to trigger anything. I don't want her to like have to think about her mom being dead. But like the daughter the whole time like wanted to talk to him about it, you know, like she wanted to be able to talk about the mom. And so they both like treated it very differently.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we're probably at the point where we've lost anyone who hasn't watched the movie. So
yeah, I was going to say, let's start moving into twists. Because now we're moving into spoilers. X out if you somehow stuck around and don't want to be spoiled. But moving into, you know, like brother plots. And let's
go brother plot first, because I think, that's the first, like, false. Because right from the weed thing, when John Cho mentioned to his brother about the weed with the recipe bit, it felt like a Chekhov's gun thing to me, or like, is this just here to like make him look stuffy, or what was the point of him mentioning the weed? But
okay, see, I did not pick up on the idea that would be a smoking gun type of thing, but you were
smoking.
But you are very correct. That was definitely the sword on the wall.
I only noticed it because it felt awkward before, of like, really, his brother who's around the same age is going to give him a hard time for having weed in the kitchen? Really?
He's clearly very much like the responsible older brother, versus like the wild younger brother. It seems like there's a pretty big age gap between them, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Yeah.
But they seemed close enough that like John Cho wouldn't have been shocked that his brother smoked pot.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like a shock. It seemed like more of a joke. Like he was like, "That's not one of the ingredients in the recipe." You know, like just kind of like
it's oregano.
Ribbing him about it.
And then he did do like a "you're not doing that at work," right?
Yeah.
There are some people that are just like very like that's a drug, and they're not cool with it regardless.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, it's been so long since I watched it for the first time. I think I like suspected the brother like before the dad suspected him. Like I think I suspected him kind of earlier in the movie and was like, maybe, but also it seemed like kind of an obvious twist, you know?
I had that
uncle.
thought too. Yeah, I had that thought too, but then it was like, that does seem obvious to me.
Yeah. And then once the dad like found the hoodie and suspected him, I was like, okay, it can't be him because we're only like halfway through the movie.
Yeah. I think part of it was like the format, because there's less secondary characters than you would normally see. So if you're like trying to suspect someone that you've already met, there were very limited options.
True. Yeah. True.
This is why I always get really caught up on like the tiny red herrings, because I'm like, it's got to be one of those. And so I got really caught up in all the side texts.
Interesting.
Like there was one of the side texts, one of the kids texted her and said, Mr. Lee is a creep. And I was like, that's it, that's him. And then like one of the comments on the video said like, that looks like my dad's car. And so I was like, that guy's dad is Mr. Lee and Mr. Lee is a creep.
It's all coming together now.
I do think it's interesting with the whole brother thing that like, and my husband and I were talking about this when we were watching it this time, that like her text thread with her uncle is there from the beginning. And obviously the dad never even opened that one because he would have seen that very recently they were hanging out and maybe been suspicious about that. And we were talking about how like, yeah, of course, like you wouldn't, you know, you have this brother that like you're fairly close with, your daughter's like fairly close with him. Like you just wouldn't even, you know, he's trying to contact her high school friends and stuff. And he just like clearly did not even open that text thread.
Yeah. It's funny because I was like, when he's scrolling through the text thread and later when it came out, he was, you know, giving her weed. I was like, it feels very much like, I'm not sure the conversation would go like that. Like that felt so good or whatever it was. I was like,
the texts were weird. That was fun. Yeah, she's like, that was fun, but it feels kind of wrong or something.
Yeah, something like that. And I was like, I feel like if you wrote that and then look back on it, you'd be like, well, that sounds like something else completely. You know, like I don't think I would have described myself smoking weed with my uncle in that way to my uncle.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
And say you're the uncle. At what point do you mention to your brother whose daughter is missing that you've been like, that you're closer than he thought? And maybe you have information that would be helpful. Because
yeah, well, and also that he is doing drugs alone in her car. So she's reached a point where like you don't do that unless you like are pretty into it. Like you don't smoke by yourself unless you do it regularly.
Well, I think they find out she wasn't actually smoking in her car.
Did they? I thought that's what she came to do.
No, they were meeting up for the money.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
He followed her to give her the money.
That's what I thought too.
She didn't know he was coming.
Yeah,
right. Never mind.
Yeah, he was following her. So she was smoking in her car. And so obviously it's a significant enough habit that's like, that's a big thing that dad doesn't know.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like one of those things where he probably was extremely conflicted at that point. Like,
well, it's funny, like once it comes down to like a kid missing, like you're really gonna not say you saw her that night.
Yeah, you tell that she's been buying, because I guess maybe she's been just getting it from him, but like you say something, you know.
Yeah.
Well, even just outside of like, because originally like they were like kind of hanging and talking right before she was like doing it on her own. So like he might have had more insight into what her life was like, and like even if he doesn't, I would be volunteering just in case he doesn't know any of it, instead of just the subtle, oh, have you talked to her recently?
Yeah, he had that conversation with John Cho that was like, oh, so you don't know who any of her friends are? Well, who would know? And it's like you would know.
Yeah. Especially if she's talking about how dad doesn't talk to me about mom because he knew that, and then obviously I'm sure she would have said something like, oh, I don't have friends at school, or I met this one person on her Comcast thing or whatever. Like she's got to have said something like that to him, right? Like so I kind of, when the dad was like attacking him basically, I was like, okay, maybe you didn't do anything horrible to her, but you still kind of deserve to get your ass kicked a little bit.
You decided to like protect your own, like protect yourself from him just being like mad at you.
Exactly.
And
like,
it's not what I would do, and I find it frustrating, but I also find it believable that someone would maybe do that. You know? Convince themselves that what they know isn't important.
It's not a big deal. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with this. Yeah. And that also that's like a little bit scummy. I don't think like a good person would do that. Strongly suspect. Yeah.
It's been interesting to see what came next if we hadn't gotten to the second fake out thing before, of like what conversation would they have had if he didn't just think that Margot had died. Like what would have happened next in that scene if he wasn't sat on the floor.
He had kind of deflated a bit, right? And was like lying on the couch saying,
yeah, they were just starting to talk.
Yeah, because the brother was like, she needs you to talk to her, and that kind of like took the wind out of his sails a bit. Yeah. And Griswold says, yeah, he followed her and jumped in her car, and she didn't know he was catfishing her or what he was there for. Yeah, as when that like came out that he like got in her car, I was like, of course she flipped out on you. She's sitting there in the dark by herself. Like,
it's kind of implied that he's like on the autism spectrum.
I was wondering that, but
because the mom is like, he's different and like he wouldn't like survive.
I did not get that. I got implied that the mom is excusing inappropriate behavior in the way that like lots of
that's possible, but I had a similar thought to Emma, was that he was socially inept, but possibly still not a good person. Like it's not mutually exclusive, because there were things like the stalking, you know, that's like, and catfishing her, that like that's just a shitty person thing. That's not an autism thing. But like the way that the mom,
because you also go back into the like stealing from your neighbors thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I don't get any like
that's true
personality things from that. I get like he's a bad person and the mom doesn't care.
Yeah.
Very entitled to like do shitty things and then to have someone else clean up your mess.
Yeah. That was such a good foreshadowing that at the time you just kind of like giggled at a little bit, like when she said that she pretended that she made the charity. Like I thought that was so funny, and then later you're like, oh shit, that's not funny anymore.
And her Facebook page, like the cover photo is like something about like a mother would do anything
for her kid. Yeah.
And even in the address book, the first name he like opens up, or like one of the first names he opens up, I think it was that kid, because like the caption was, had a crush on Margot when they were little.
What was this?
I don't even remember.
He was going through the address book, and one of the descriptions that I saw was had a crush on Margot when she was little.
So that was him in the book.
That seems like a weird thing to put.
Not go back and look at like what the name was, because we know his name. His name's Robert Vick.
Yeah, I don't distinctly remember the name going along with it because I just didn't think anything of it at the time.
Right. Oh, interesting. Yeah, there was a few things they tied in really well that didn't obviously click until the end, and I went, oh my god, like that was very clever of them.
Yeah. So going into that twist in the ending, how far into the movie did it take you all before you suspected what the final result of the mystery was?
I don't remember. I think it may have been
briefly before John Cho figured it out.
Yeah, I do remember zoning in on the fish and chips person, like on the, because I was like, they seem too obsessed with her. Like
I figured she was being catfished.
Yeah,
I think I figured that, but I didn't realize the detective was involved.
I do remember being really surprised when they said they went and found her and talked to her, because I don't know if something like it. I don't know if that's an actual stock model or not that they used for that photo, but there was something about her photo that didn't seem real to me either.
It seemed a very stock photo.
And then when they're like, oh, they went into this cafe and interviewed her, and I'm like, that woman works in a cafe. You cannot convince me. I don't think. I don't know. There's just like, that looks like a very professional. It didn't seem to click, but then I dismissed it when we went off or whatever.
Oh, she just happened to have a mom who also had cancer.
It was all very all very lined up. And then the fact,
and just like the name being fish and chips, I was like, is this person catfishing her?
I didn't think of that.
Fun fact. So I don't know if anyone, you probably didn't notice this because you didn't know what the ending of the movie was, but like this little Easter egg is in that initial sequence. So like right after the mom dies, and then it shows her first day of school picture for high school. It's like the name of the high school, and it's home of the catfish. Like that's their mascot.
What? Oh my gosh,
that's too funny.
Brilliant,
amazing.
It's so funny because I like gave myself a little pat on the back because I'm so bad at like faces and remembering where I've seen faces from. So when the thing popped up from the memorial thing, I was like, it's her. And Sean is like behind me on the computer. He's like, what are you freaking out about? So I'm like, I remember who it is. And because he didn't remember at first, he was going through her friends, like on her Facebook and her other accounts. I'm like, it's Crowdcast, like yelling at the TV. Because I was like, I think that's the only time I've ever actually caught on to something before.
Once it started the slow zoom on her face, like all the pieces kind of came into place in my house. Like, oh, well, it's the catfishing, it's the this, it's the that. I remember being very suspicious of the fact that they were like, well, this guy confessed, so we're done. I was like, well, surely you'll keep looking. And I remember being like, well, why aren't they?
Things up. Like, this isn't.
Yeah. I don't remember being like, oh, she's got something to do with it. But I remember being like, this doesn't make sense.
But the funny thing is, like, I could totally see that happening in real life. Not that the investigation would be called off, but that it would be considered a much like colder case, like a cooler case. Be like, well,
and they found his DNA at the lake, so that was because they like mentioned on the news. They're like, sometimes this is a hoax, but like they found his DNA at the lake.
Right, exactly.
And what did he say he did with the body?
Dumped it in the lake.
Put her in a suitcase.
So, because that also sort of like we wouldn't still try to find her, just who did it. So so long, corpse.
The dad even said like they didn't find her suitcase. The money was still in the car or whatever else he said. Like it doesn't add up. So.
I do remember they do that like big pan out when everyone is first starting the search, and they show these people walking down the street, and there's the ravine on either side. And I remember my first thought was like, why are they walking on the road? They should be finding a way in the ravine.
But it's because she told them like, oh, we've already cleared that area.
Right.
And it's like subtle. That's the good thing to do is like some of the things she does are so subtle that you don't even think, you don't even notice that she's like, oh, we've already cleared this area. We're going to like search the other.
Because it's dangerous. But even that, I was like, well, why are you on the road? John Cho would totally jump in that ravine.
Well, like I'm surprised did they show footage of them like dredging the lake or the pond or whatever it was? Because that would be the first thing. Oh, so they must have done that. Okay.
Yeah. I loved his Google spreadsheet.
Yeah.
That really spoke to me.
I was like so organized.
Yes.
Organized in your grief and panic.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how to feel about some of that because like it makes sense you'd get the dad that involved to like find out things about her or assume that he already knows it, but like you never see these kind of like procedurals where the victim's parents just get to help in the investigation.
That's
like
true.
It makes sense, but it didn't feel like all the other shows I'd watched. So I don't know what's true. But
I think it's funny because I was watching a documentary about this the other day, and it was one on Netflix where the mom basically catfishes multiple men until she finds out who killed her daughter. Fascinating documentary. I can't remember what it's called right now, but she was like involved in things to a point, and then the detective basically said the same thing to her as what happened in the movie. It was like, you can't be doing this, because she was like approaching them in person and stuff. Like, you can't be doing this. You need to stop, essentially. And then she just kept doing it on her own. Like, no one can really stop.
Classic protagonist.
Yeah. This was real life though, and she did uncover what happened. Like, it's pretty wild.
And it's like, of course, especially considering the fact that the detective is involved, she like probably was not planning or expecting on him going that deep, and so I'm thinking it's probably kind of like standard procedure to be like, just whatever you can tell us about her, because that's what she says to him. Is she's like, the best thing you can do is like tell us about your daughter,
right,
so that we can like better understand what might have happened to her. So I don't think she was like expecting him to like go in and like be making spreadsheets and like.
I'm trying to remember some of the stuff like that he got an email and stuff, because like him going deep and trying to be as helpful as possible, but then it felt like there was a little bit of back and forth of like, it didn't feel like the police
definitely was, and I don't know if that was supposed to be like a red flag of like, why is she encouraging this so much?
I noticed that she says to him a lot like, this was not your fault, it's not your fault, it's not, and I'm like, is she saying
you don't know that?
Well, and I'm wondering if she's saying that to get him to stop looking.
One thing that I do think is like interesting is that some people on the internet say this, but the cops never suspect the dad.
That's true. Yeah, she never has a line of questioning like that.
Yeah, it probably helps that she tried to call him. I feel like that would make it seem like it's not something. Yeah, that's such a standard. Like you go to the closest person in their life as a suspect.
Yeah, but you can also see how like Detective Vic wouldn't have wanted to put so much pressure on him of like accusing him because that might cause him to like turn on her. You know, she wanted to seem like friendly and
so these are all just like really interesting, subtle ways that like the investigation felt off, and only if you like watched a bunch of other fake investigations in video.
There was this one clue that again I was like, why is she reacting like this? Not even considering the fact that it would be a clue for whatever reason. But when he realizes where Margot was driving, and so he goes out there and he's trying to call the detective and he can't get her on the phone. And finally he's out there and he's found Margot's keychain, and he gets the detective on FaceTime, and she has like woken up, and he's like very upset because he thinks Margot might be dead. And she's like, it's going to be fine. She's like really chill. And then sirens come on in the background, and she's like, did you call the cops? She's like, I am coming right now. I'll be right there.
Oh my God,
like,
you're right.
Are they freaking out so much? Are they not?
Oh my God.
And it's like, especially going back and watching it a second time and knowing, like when she first answers the phone, he says to her, you lied to me. Because she's been like, oh, she's just a runaway or whatever. And she does have this, like, there's this moment where she has a look of like slight panic in her eyes, you know, and she starts trying to get more information from him because she doesn't want to just be, you know, be like, I can explain it or whatever, you know.
I want to rewatch now.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
really
catch
interesting
that.
because like she gets kind of still, you know, and so it's like asking questions.
Interesting.
Yeah, right. Like, when those sirens go off, like you can tell she's like,
you called the cops. Yeah. And that's when she starts like throwing on clothes, and her son walks through the background.
Right. It's funny because I must have picked up on that subconsciously because my brain went, what's wrong with that? Are they like different districts cops? Like, does she not want them in her investigation?
And it's like just subtle enough that you can kind of, like maybe she doesn't want them interfering, or like maybe it's just like, oh, you called them. You know, like it's kind of like when you don't know, you're like, am I imagining it? Weirdly? Did she like play it weird? You know, like maybe like, oh, you called them. Like I'm on my way too, kind of thing.
It escalates just neatly enough that if you're paying close attention, you realize that the point when she hears the sirens is when she really starts getting
freaked out. Yeah.
But if you aren't like watching super closely, it's like, well, he found the keychain and she's kicked into gear now.
Right.
Also the point where like, it's when she tells him he needs to stop after he beats up the kid, and she tells him he needs to stop investigating. Her son comes in her office behind her then, and she's like, let me take care of this, is what she says. Not like, I'm doing something for work, I need you to go. Like, give me what she said, let me take care of this.
Oh, I didn't catch that at all either, because that's very weird phrasing that apparently didn't.
Yeah, she kind of like cuts him off and says that, you know, so interesting.
Weird. I think I just assumed she meant he could hear people yelling at his mom.
Right. Or like, let me take care of this work thing and then I'll like, help you with what you need. You know, like it's another thing that's like very innocent in the moment.
Yeah, I definitely assigned a different meaning to that. Like, oh, he hears his mom being yelled at and yelling back. And she's like, no, I got this kind of thing. That's very interesting.
When I was watching that part, I was like, well, why would you? Surely her job is detective. This probably happens a lot. So why are you coming in?
Why is he concerned? Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. There's so much I didn't pick up on, and now I'm going to have to watch it again.
I started playing the movie on my computer, and I was unpacking my bookshelf. And it was probably like, by 20 minutes in, I was like, I can't be unpacking my bookshelf. I need to be sitting right in front of my computer watching this.
There was a few moments that got so tense that I was literally on the edge of the couch. And I think it was when one of them was when I don't know if this is realistic. Maybe he still had his camera on. but she was calling at 3 a.m. or whatever, and he was passed out on the bed. I guess that would be like if he accidentally left the camera on, but like, why is he?
Yeah, I think his computer's just open.
Yeah, maybe. But it was very tense for some reason. I was like, oh my God, shit's going down now. 3 a.m. phone call.
Yeah. I'm curious what y'all's thoughts are. So there was obviously a really interesting format. Do you guys think that if the format had been different, it would have been easier to figure out the mystery? Or do you think that regardless of format, this would have been a really interesting twist?
Probably regardless of format. It's taking the like familiar detective character of like, oh, there's a mystery. You get a detective. That's just how this works.
Yeah.
So taking that was helpful. But I would love to I want to watch more interviews by like mystery writers or anyone who like finds ways to layer these little things in, because I feel like if I'd taken anything they did, I'd be like, they're gonna know they're gonna know it's a clue. I'm not being subtle enough. So how they know?
Yeah, it's like I think the mystery would have worked in any format, but like this was just an interesting format to present it in, and the ways that they like layered this mystery in this format like just makes it an even better movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Otherwise, it would just be kind of like generic thriller mystery, you know, and this kind of like elevated it.
I think it felt much more present and real with this format because of the like digital age we're in with the work meetings on Zoom and everything. Like this felt very real and immediate to me. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, awesome. Does anyone have anything else about the movie standing out? Oh, I do wish with the resolution, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of them after being reunited. What we did see was really cute, but I wanted just a little bit more.
Yeah, I actually did think that too. It felt the ending felt a little not rushed, but short, I think. Yeah, with their reunite. Like, because we spent so much time panicked looking for her. I'm like, I want to see them like together a little bit more afterwards.
I want to see her eyes open at least, and she recognizes that he's there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think it's I don't know, it was a good balance that like it's, you know, a little bit unrealistic she would have survived the fall and been there for 5 days and stuff, but I also think it's the only ending for this movie, you know, like I think it's a very deliberate choice to end a movie like that with like a happy ending. You know, it's not necessarily like a safe choice or anything, it's a deliberate choice, and I think it was like the right choice for this movie, especially because you
felt like that
at the beginning, you know.
Like I never really felt like she was gonna turn up dead.
I had like a 20-second period where I was like, wait, is she just gonna be dead?
Actually dead. I didn't think that they would do that after killing off the mom.
I didn't think
they would.
That guy confessed, and I was like, "Are they gonna just find her body?"
Wait a minute.
And I
know it's not
whole,
this guy,
like,
but
part where I love when they're the like overlay of them interviewing her and also showing like the news footage and like when they like turn the car around because the dad is like, no, it was only 2 days, not 5 because of the storm. Like that's a really
cool was
part.
So
very
good.
cool.
Yeah.
It definitely like made me cry. It probably made me cry the first time I watched it, but I've also become a parent since then. So like,
oh God, yes.
You know.
So everything makes me cry. Yes.
If I was like a parent and child, it's like, oh no.
What have I done?
At that point it felt a little weird to me on the timing as well of like, so if she was dead again, we're just okay, bye corpse. Like we weren't gonna check.
Like we weren't gonna immediately send someone over there.
I guess because they were like, because I'm assuming it was like she confessed on the car ride, because like when they arrested her they didn't know exactly what had happened, they just knew she was involved. So she confessed on the car ride, and they were probably like, well, we'll take her in and then we'll send people, because they just assume she's dead because it's been 5 days, you know. It's not until the dad's like, no, like there was water in between, so she like could have.
Except the cops should have figured that one out too. Like there was a storm 2 days ago.
I understand why for the format it had to be her in the interrogation room or whatever giving the confession. I would have loved to see John Cho like realizing all these things. I get like you can't bring your internet into the car like that, like it needed for that format. But
Mm-hmm.
he was just so good in the whole movie. I wanted to see him be happy.
Yeah, I don't know if it could have made him, I guess, talking to his brother or something on the phone.
Well, I felt like there were lots of ways you probably could have tweaked the ending of like, because you didn't need to have the very fast visual memorial thing. So he could have just like had the realization elsewhere, somewhere where you could have them both in the same place or whatever. Like there were different ways you could have swung it.
I do think it would have, it was very convenient that the picture just happening on the memorial side, and it would have felt less convenient if he'd been doing something else. Like if he'd been shopping for funeral clothes or something and saw like a model wearing a dress, or like something else.
It was very,
But it just happened to the memorial site feels a little convenient. So it would have been a different way. But I get they wanted that like I do really like that scene where you like are just watching the memorial like with no sound. And like he like walks in there and the police come in.
Very good.
Cool, so.
And then the technical difficulties when it gets real awkward.
Yeah.
They tried to like excuse themselves or like explain themselves a little bit because when he looks up the stock model, it's like world's top stock model or like most popular stock model on the internet or whatever. And you're like, okay, they know how unlikely it is that she would be like the face of the company. So yeah, but I kind of wanted a little bit more of like, because the fact that her case blew up essentially, and then she was having this like live stream memorial essentially. I wanted to see more of like the effects this had on the general public of seeing cops show up at the memorial and basically arrest the detective. Like,
well, even thinking about it now and knowing that there was like the Reddit stuff about it.
Yeah,
like, that Reddit could have found her UCAS, and like the internet definitely would have known she was like a huge stock model for sure.
Yeah,
period of time, maybe. I did love that it showed there was like already like Reddit discussion because it's like that's what happens. Yeah, and I feel like if it had been a longer period of time, definitely someone on Reddit would have figured that out.
Well, I knew that like when he saw the shirt in the car, like they look like Reddit pictures to me. Like someone was like, here's more pictures of the car, because the Reddit detectives are like all over that immediately. But I'm like, also he has inside knowledge they can't possibly have, like knowing that's his brother's shirt, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Reddit detectives have literally solved crimes before.
It's like there is like a possibility, especially it's been 5 days. The public is only known for maybe 3 days tops, like basically since they found the car. So like it hasn't been long enough that like they may not have even found her UCAST account because it's not under her name, it's under like name.
True.
And they eventually I'm sure would have found her, someone would have figured it out, but it's very possible that they like wouldn't have even found that stuff yet in that period of time. They were still very much in the like let's suspect the dad phase of the investigation.
Yeah, doing it in that time period was also definitely a very deliberate choice.
I don't know why. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love stuff like that for some reason, like in movies and books. Like that was a big part of Witches of Ash and Ruin, like the crime forums and stuff where people are like, let's comb over all the evidence and like, like pitch theories back and forth to each other. Because I'm like, this is just fun in real life too. So, I mean, not fun because it's murder, but you know what I mean? It's fascinating.
An interesting puzzle.
Yes. Yeah.
We had a comment from N. Griswold. I think John Cho was stellar in this film. Everything about his emotions was so familiar. He was in his house alone and he didn't need to put up a facade and didn't. I believed everything, the rage, the guilt, the sadness, the joy.
Yeah, he was really good.
He was so good.
Yeah.
I know like the whole reason I like knew about this movie and saw it when it came out in like 2017, I think, is because that was like in the height of the like starring John Cho Twitter account, which familiar was like this whole Twitter account that was like it's basically how there should be like more like Asian Americans in film, and how they can like Asian American men can play like the hot heroes and stuff. And so it was like this account that would like Photoshop John Cho onto different movie posters. And then like this movie came out, and I followed that account, and they were like kind of like, oh, John Cho has this movie coming out. It's this really interesting mystery with this like cool format. And I think I don't remember exactly what year this would have been, but I think it was like during the time of Movie Pass, and I had a Movie Pass. So like I just saw everything that came out. So I'm really glad because I think it's one of those movies that was like it did well, but it was kind of underappreciated. So good in it.
Yeah, I immediately, once it was finished, I texted my mom and my sister who also like thrillers and mysteries. And so like the second it was over, I was like, you guys got to watch this movie.
definitely.
Well, we've been going for almost an hour. So I think we'll probably wrap it up here. Anyone have any final thoughts about the movie?
No, just watch it if you haven't yet.
Yeah, even if you know the ending, it's
having rewatched it, it's still really good.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch it now to catch all the things I missed.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. We have next week's live chat again at 7:30. Is that Writing Friendships? Is that what
sounds right? But I don't know off the top of my head.
I think it's Writing Friendships. So yeah, we hope that you will please like and subscribe if you like us and want to be subscribed to our content. We do these live chats every Sunday at 7:30 Eastern time, and we do regular
It's revisions.
Oh, it's revisions.
The week after.
Revisions. So yeah, we're going to be talking all about revising books. And so yeah, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for being here and for chatting with us about this movie. And we will see you later. Bye. Bye.